Okay, we are live. Let me just give everybody a minute and let me get this camera set up straighter. Okay. Good morning. Just waiting for folks to join for the Ask Me Anything this bright Monday morning. I'm on the West Coast today. Okay. All right. I see one person has joined, so let me just give it a few seconds. Hope the folks are off to a good start today. I know I am. I made it to the gym, which is always a good thing. Gets the blood flowing. All right, and I have 9 o'clock. So it's 9 o'clock, and I will start my Ask Me Anything. For those who haven't joined before, this is my monthly opportunity that I try to provide to folks to, frankly, ask me anything. I've had the fortune to have had a good career. I've been able to achieve the things that I set out to achieve. And part of my passion is being able to share what I've learned, lessons learned, what works, what doesn't, etc., and just overall perspective. And I've found that many times when people have a question, others have it too. So this is a forum that gives people a chance to get their own questions answered, but frankly, also learn from others. And this was really spawned after I wrote the book Unapologetically Ambitious, which was the other way in which I tried to share. Here's the things that I've learned throughout my career, what worked, what didn't, etc. So check it out. You might find that of interest. All right, I'm going to jump into the questions. So first, in leading others, how do you navigate ego while leading through influence? So this is a great question because frankly, whenever you get groups of people together, there's always going to be ego in one shape or form. So managing ego is really just about how do you manage people? And it starts first with listening. So folks are showing their ego or drawing attention, all those kinds of things. First is listen. Try to understand what's driving that behavior. Many times people who exhibit strong ego and need a lot of self-attention and awareness, etc., it's because they feel like they're actually not getting it. So number one, listen. Try to understand where the person's coming from, what motivates and what drives them. Next is actually for things that they do well and for areas in which they've made an impact, praise them. A lot of times they actually need that. They need the feedback. So it's absolutely fine to provide it. If ego gets in the way, then this is where you just need to pull people aside sometimes. Sometimes egos, and when people distribute ego, they themselves don't listen or actually are not aware of some of the dynamics around. So it's okay to pull people aside and just say, hey, you may not be aware, but XYZ, when you said this or when you stepped over someone or interrupted, whatever, this is what happened or this is how you made somebody else feel. Sometimes people just aren't aware, so just make them aware. But the big pieces around managing ego are just managing people. Understand where they're coming from, try to meet their needs, and actually try to help them develop and be exposed to areas in which they don't realize how their actions are actually impacting others. Next question. At your level of success, you've clearly sustained a powerful network. What strategies would you suggest for one to build and sustain a fruitful network that will propel you in your personal and professional development? So first, building a network. People who know me know I think building a network is really important. But let me first just take a minute to define a network. Because some people think that a network is how many people you have in your phone contacts, right? No, I believe a network is a set of true relationships. Relationships where people will do something for you when you need it, when it's like not convenient. So they do it because they care about you. That's really building a network. And building a network, like anything else that you build, takes nurturing. You have to nurture and develop a network. So as you meet people, it's a combination of staying in touch, communications. I can't overemphasize communications. So it's finding ways to stay in communications with people. And it can be as simple as you see an article in the newspaper that might be of interest, right, to some people in your network. You send it to them. Or it could be periodic updates that you might do, maybe around the end of the year, right, etc. It comes from reaching out to folks to say, hey, I was just thinking about you. How are you doing? So you want to build that network by actually building a relationship. And a relationship means that you actually care about the other person, you think about the other person. So it's not an email blast. When I say, share an article, it's okay, let me share an article. Dear, friend, here's blah, blah, blah. No, that's not personal. That's not going to create any kind of relationship. If you're trying to actually create relationships, then you have to say, hey, Shellye, right? Saw this article and based on our conversation, whatever, 3 months ago, I thought you might find this of interest, right? You want to make it personal. That's one. The other way to stay in communications with others, whether, like I said, it's those emails, the touch points, etc. But it's also reaching out to people, whether they are local and or remote. I'll reach out to people and do walks and talks. So even if they're in Michigan and I'm in California, right, we'll set up a time and we'll go for a walk and we'll talk while we're on the phone. So doing that are ways to stay in touch even when you're not physically in the same place. So building a network is staying in touch. It's communicating in a personal way, and establishing a relationship that's honest and trustworthy. I'll tell you, the other part of a network is being there when people reach out to you. So are you responsive? When you say you're going to do something, oh, I'll introduce you to such and such, or I'll share your resume, whatever it might be. Do you actually do it? Right? Following through is really important. Because if you don't, then people don't feel you actually have a relationship, right? Then it's just a transaction that you chose to do or not to do. Next one. 10 months ago, I changed jobs and took a huge cut to my salary, benefits, title, etc. for two reasons. One, HR and the boss indicated that they would put a team under me within a year and push me up for promotion. And B, the projects the boss said they would assign to me would allow me to specialize further and possibly catapult my career. Let's see, even having the name of the place on my CV can help. Okay, I'm not sure what that means. Over these 10 months, the work assigned to me is different from what I was told, and it does not grow my specialization. I've tried speaking with my boss about it, but they work on a take it or leave it basis. Second, I found that there is no intention to put a team under me, let alone put me up for promotion. The whole team is flat with me having the most relevant knowledge and experience, and 90% of my work is not challenging. So the only pro so far is the name of the place on my CV. I guess it's the name of the company. What can I do to advance my career? Is it time to leave for another job? Well, my first set of feedback is when you look at your career, right, you have to remember that you own your career, not your boss, not your manager, not your mentor, etc. You do. So you need to self-assess the situation and figure out, is the job that you're currently in and the opportunities that you have in the role, are they actually moving you toward your overall career aspirations? In reading what you just wrote, it sounds like they aren't. And it also sounds like you've already had the conversation, which is the next step I always recommend, is to have a conversation with your boss and say, here's what I'm trying to achieve. Here's where I am, right? Do you think I have the potential to achieve what I'm going after? And if so, how can I do that? But it sounds, based upon the note that you've sent me, that you've had conversations and nobody's any intention on actually developing you. So I would say that you need to self-assess. And if this role is not going to put you on the path where you need to go, then you need to change roles. And whether that's changing roles within the same company, I can't tell, or a different company. But bottom line is you need to take responsibility for your career. Because right now, there doesn't appear to be anybody around you that's actually helping or supporting you. So you need to find an environment that is supportive. Next one. If I'm aiming for the CEO office, should I focus on operational roles? I hear that chief marketing officer roles have a ceiling, but the COO is most likely to become CEO. Well, I'll tell you, it's really not so much a title thing. It's all about the skills and experiences that you can bring. So when you ask about operational roles, yeah, people want folks ideally, when they look for CEOs, they're looking for people who have actually managed businesses operationally, have had responsibility for profit and loss, have had responsibility for managing big teams, have had scope, right, across the overall organization. Because when they become CEO, they've got to manage all of it. So the more experience they bring in managing elements of it, the better. But the most, important role in terms of a CEO is setting the overall strategy, building an overall plan. I'm talking business and financial plan to deliver on that strategy, and hiring the people and team that can actually get it done, and then managing them, right, to be able to drive execution. So when people look to hire CEOs, they're looking for people who have demonstrated capabilities across those set of spectrums. Now, you can get those kinds of experiences in a lot of different jobs. And if you look at many CEOs, and it's really easy on LinkedIn, right? Search CEO, see what comes up, and look at the kinds of jobs that they had to actually get there. So when you say you've heard that CMO roles have a ceiling, well, sometimes, but I was a CMO before I was a CEO, but I'd also had experience running sales, right? So it all depends. The key is to develop a broad set of capabilities that will allow you to do those things that I just outlined so that you can compete effectively for a CEO role. So bottom line is, if you want to go after a CEO role, look at the kinds of jobs and experience that people in your industry have held before they became CEOs. That's the easiest thing to do. And then go after opportunities that help you build those skills and give you those kinds of experiences. But I'll tell you, the broader your set of experience, the more opportunity you've had to actually manage a P&L, profit and loss, where you're responsible for driving revenue and profit, the odds are better that you will compete better in the role. So I highly encourage you to go after those roles if you want a CEO job. Next one. How do you recommend to maintain professional relationships after initial introductions? Okay, this is close to the first one that I did. The key here, we said after initial introductions. Well, first of all, always drop a note. If someone had a big impact on you, right, you drop them a note. You say, hey, Rajesh, it was thrilling to meet you, and have a conversation about blah, 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 blah. I mean, make it personal. Don't just say, it's nice to meet you. Hope I see you again, Shellye. That's not personal. It doesn't show you listened. It shows nothing, right? It looks like a form letter. No, you have to send a note that's actually personal. Touch on some of the topics that you may have discussed with this person, right? And then it's perfectly fine to say, look forward to staying in touch. And then, right, be proactive. Perhaps this person had interest in, I'm going to make it up, maybe you had a conversation about artificial intelligence, right? Well, in a couple weeks, look for an article or something interesting about artificial intelligence and send it to them. Say, hey, I came across this article, and based on our conversation a couple weeks ago, I thought you might find it of interest. What is that? It's personal. It shows you listened and remembered the person. And it's a touch point, right? Because you touch them. So the key is you need to find ways to actually have a value added connection, not just a, hi, I was thinking about you, hope you're well. Well, okay, but that doesn't do anything to actually build or move forward any kind of relationship. So always think about, how can you add value, right, to this person? And that becomes the basis of how you can build a relationship. And work on the cadence. Somebody you've never met, you don't suddenly pepper them with emails every week, right? That's not the same. But you can let a few weeks go by, once a quarter, you can do something, etc. Those are the ways, but always look for, how can you add value to the person? You can also pay attention. If it's somebody who might have a visible kind of role in the industry, set up a Google alert. And so if they get a promotion, or if they publish an article or something happens, you know it. And then you can say, hey, I saw this, right? And you respond. So there's different ways. But again, you have to be intentional about what you're doing to figure out ways in which you can add value and how you communicate with somebody. What are 5 critical skills for corporate board work? I will tell you, the skills themselves are very similar to the skills that you need for any executive job. So you need the ability to communicate effectively. You need the ability to analyze. You need the ability to, um, how would I say it, to problem solve, right? Work through issues. You need to be observant, to be able to watch and understand, right? People and dynamics. And you need to be able to add value in whatever set of backgrounds you have. Now, I'll tell you, when it comes to boards, it's not so much that they're hiring for skills. When you're in an operation job, they're hiring for skills, right? They want a chief marketing officer. All right. Do you understand how to market? Do you understand about lead generation? Do you understand about conversion rates, right? Have you done, it's very skill based. But when you're looking to bring somebody on a board, you're really looking for experiences, because it's those experiences that are going to add value and perspective to the organization, because their senior executives have skills, right? It's not like there isn't a team there. There is. And what they're looking to their board for is for, based upon the experience that you've had, the activities that you've done, the relationships and networks, can you provide value on that overall view, right? So it's much more experience oriented than, if you will, specific skills as it relates to an operating job. I see a couple of questions that have come through on the chat. And by the way, I forgot to mention it, but if you have a question, just drop it in the chat. I read the questions I got in advance, and I also look at the chat. So let's see, this one's from Scott. Let's see, Shellye Elliott here. Okay. As you rose up through the ranks, how did you manage a technical skill set versus leadership skills? For example, learning certain software programs or competencies in SAP versus leading. Actually, it's not an either or. As you're building skills, it's important to build, yes, the technical skills that apply to the role and job you have. But frankly, leadership skills, you should be building all the time. You know, it's not a title that makes you a leader. You can be a leader without anybody reporting to you. Leading is all about creating an environment in which people want to follow you, where they want you on their team, where if you are getting ready to do something, right, they want to participate because they believe that by working with you, you bring, vision, structure, organization, et cetera, right, to be able to move things forward. So it's not an either or. You want to be building both. And building both, you can be building your technical skills, as you said, absolutely, in terms of SAP, programming, whatever. But leadership skills are all about how you act. And you can act like a leader every single day. Leadership is being able to pull people together to get things done, right? That's really what leadership is. And to do that, you want to create an environment in which people want to actually get done what needs to get done. So being able to articulate, hey, what are we doing and why is it important? And being able to communicate and, have people do and participate in a way that aligns with their skills, right? And their interests and their focus. All those things are leadership. And you can do that with project teams. You can do that by volunteering to lead an initiative. So do both, technical and leadership. This one's from Alina. Shellye, thank you for taking the time this AMA. I loved learning your story through your book and found it very helpful to navigate starting my own career. Well, thank you very much. Any question there? Oh, here we go. What steps can one take to build confidence, self-determination at work? I find confidence you can build by, frankly, doing a job, getting things done, and saying that you can actually do it. So what I would tell you, it sounds a little counterintuitive, but by taking risks, by signing up to do something that maybe you didn't know how to do or you weren't an expert at to begin with, but then getting it done builds confidence. So I encourage you, don't just stay in your box, right? When opportunities come forward, even if you don't think you have all the skills, all the experience, everything you need to know to be able to get it done, you'll figure it out. So take those risks, step forward, raise your hand, volunteer, whatever it might be. And then you'll see that as you actually execute it and you are successful, then you will build confidence. A lot of times confidence comes from actually getting things done, from moving the ball forward, from leading a team, pulling a group together. All those things actually drive confidence. So take risks. And then when you're successful getting through those risks, that will build confidence. And trust me, even if you stumble, you take a risk and it's like, ooh, right, maybe you stumbled a time or two, etc. As long as you're learning from that, then the next time will be smoother and it will be better and it will still build confidence. And it'll also build confidence because when you stumble or have that failure, you realize that, hey, you didn't die. Okay, it was not the end of the world. And that in itself will build some confidence. So those are all things you can do. Here's another one. My company is going through a CEO transition and I'm 2 levels below the CEO, but have interfaced with him a few times. How would you suggest I help him navigate the transition and see opportunities? Oh, see challenges, communicate. Okay. Let's see. So I'm assuming you're talking about the new, Scott, I just need clarification. Are you talking about the new CEO coming in or the CEO that's going out? So let me give him a chance to respond to that, and then I'll come back to his question. Let's see, hang on a minute. Let me scroll up. Here we go. Yes, the new CEO coming in. Yeah, so for the new CEO coming in, the key is being able to offer insights that aren't obvious. And what I mean by insights that aren't obvious, when you come in as a new CEO, the first thing they typically do, at least good ones, they do what I call a listening tour, right? They get out there and talk to people because they're trying to figure out what's going on. They talk to employees, to customers, to partners, right? Obviously to the board, et cetera. So when you have your conversation with the CEO, whether that's one-on-one or even in a group, you want to be able to provide perspectives and insights that will be helpful to the new CEO in building their strategy, their approach, and setting their priorities. They can read, right, what's the business is doing in terms of revenue and products. And I mean, they can read all that. Where you can add value to someone coming in new is by offering insights and perspectives that are not necessarily obvious, but that will help them in going through. Being able to pull together information. Again, most people, when they come into new jobs, especially CEOs, are trying to quickly absorb as much as they can absorb about the environment and customers and marketplace and the whole bit. So anything that you can do to make that easier is helpful. For instance, I'm making it up. If you're aware of a whole customer piece of work survey, blah, 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 that was done, maybe even it was a year ago, right? Even being able to put that together and put a synopsis in front of it and send it and just say, hey, thought you might find it interesting to see what customers were thinking, a year ago as you're building out your view or vision, right? All those things can be very helpful in helping them get up to speed quickly. Okay. Let me go back to the other questions that have come in. Let's see. Well, here's a broad one that unfortunately I can't answer for you. And this one just says, what career path should I choose? Here's what I'll tell you. If you don't know what you want to do, right, then honestly, it doesn't matter which career path you choose. It really doesn't matter because any career path will give you an opportunity to learn. And the key is to learn. So, what I tell people is if you don't know exactly what you want to do, then just pick an area, an industry, a segment of the market that's growing. Because if you pick an area that's growing, I find that companies in those spaces never have enough resources. And therefore you have the opportunity to learn a lot quickly. And if you like it, wonderful. And if not, you'll find out quickly. And then you can pivot to something else. But don't just stay stuck sitting someplace. If you're not sure what you want to do, then treat it like you were in high school or college. We all had required courses we had to take. It's not because we wanted to take them. We just had to take them. Well, treat your career as you're getting started the same way. If you're not sure what you want to do, then go after areas that are growing or go after areas in which skill sets are in high demand. Right now, if you're in analytics, you're in data, if you're in cyber, right? We could talk about a lot of areas that are in big demand. So pick those areas because you'll always be able to get a job. And again, if you like it, wonderful. And if not, then you can pivot to something else. But now you've got a skill set and a background that'll be valuable to multiple different industries. Okay, next. What's the best way to pivot into tech from a sales career? Well, actually, and anybody who knows me knows, I think sales is like a phenomenal set of experience. I think everybody should do a stint in sales because you learn so much when you're in sales. So if you're trying to move from a sales career in a different industry into the tech industry, leverage sales. No tech company out there doesn't have a sales organization of some type. So salespeople, especially if you're good, are always in demand. And you can absolutely transfer your skills in sales from a non-tech space into tech. My nephew did it. He was selling basically truck containers. All right. So they had trucks that would deliver a product, et cetera. People needed to move a product from one place to the other and they needed trucks. And right. And that was his business, not technical at all. Right. It was trucking. He's now working in sales, right, for a cybersecurity software company. Why? Because it's sales. Once you understand how to sell, you understand how to talk to a customer, how to find out their needs, how to demonstrate the value of your particular product, whatever that happens to be, right? Close the customer, support the customer, build relationships, etc. That works no matter what you're doing. So go into tech, but leverage your sales career. Okay, next. How do you pivot from a community engagement career focused on equity, diversity, and inclusion? Hmm. Actually, it's asking me how did I pivot? So I'm not sure what that means because I didn't. I didn't actually have a career in the community engagement. So I apologize. So if this person is on the phone, Debbie Smith, if you're out there, feel free to rephrase your question for me so that I better understand it. All right, next. How do you pivot from the public sector into the private sector? So this is a great question because a lot of people work in public sector and are looking at how do they move across. So a couple things. One, realize skill sets are skill sets. Just like I chatted before, if you've been selling in a non-tech industry, you can always pivot that to sales in a tech industry. The key is looking at the skill sets that you have in public sector and then figuring out how you can apply and match them. What's the equivalent to the private sector? Because frankly, they're both businesses. They're both businesses. You can be working in the Department of Transportation and be responsible for, I don't even know, but say urban planning, right, for transportation. Well, that same set of skills, how you do planning, how you think about logistics, right, how you think about movement of things, et cetera. Well, guess what? There are a lot of companies. Heck, Amazon logistics, planning, how to optimize getting deliveries through, different regions, et cetera. Skill sets transfer. So the key is understanding and really analyzing what are the skills that I've built over here in my public sector job and what do they equate to on the private sector? Because they do. Just about everything you do in the public sector exists in some way in the private sector. Now, when you're applying for jobs, and the key is you have to be very proactive. When you're applying for jobs, just make sure you use language in your resumes, in your communications that's private sector oriented versus public sector oriented. Public sector they don't refer to their clients, the people they serve, as customers. All right. Since I'm not in the public sector, can't remember exactly what they call them, but a lot of times they call them their servicees or something, right? But we use customer on the private sector. So you want to use the word customer or client. It's that kind of thing, right? Make sure your language is private sector oriented. Then use your network. I'm sure that somehow through the period of your career, you've known somebody who's gone from public sector to private, right? Reach out to them, find out how they did it, learn from them and their experience. Use the networks that you've got, neighbors, friends, colleagues, alumni associations, right, et cetera. All of them to be able to reach out to them to help you with how you get introductions, with getting help and perspective, even a review of your resume. And how might that apply, right, on the overall private sector side? So those are all things that you can do. And don't be daunted. It's not as hard as it sounds, especially right now. There is huge demand for so many different skills across the private sector. There are millions of jobs right now that are open. So it's a good time to do it. Just make sure you do it right and with that focus. All right. Next, how do you attract others to want to invest in your career development? How do you place yourself on the radar for opportunities? Um, and how can, all right, so let me stop there because there's a whole bunch of questions here. So, first, how do you attract others to want to invest in your career and place yourself on the radar for opportunities? So, you can't ask or demand people to invest in your career, right? They have to want to do that. And I found the best way to do that is just by adopting mentors and becoming a good mentee. And I tell you how to do that in my book. So if you haven't read it and this is an area that you're interested in, go get the book. Um, but the net is when you are trying to get people to invest in you, right, and work and support you, then you have to create an environment and a relationship in which they get to know you, in which they feel that they can actually have an impact and are having an impact on you. So the key is back to building those relationships. And it can start so simply. The questions where you're aspiring to something. You might be sitting here now and you're a manager of a team, but one day you want to make it up. You want to be the chief technology officer of a company, right? Well, then it's asking people who might be in and around this space to say, one day I aspire to be a chief technology officer. Do you think I have the potential? Right? Something really open, easy to answer. And you'll find a lot of people will say, yes, right? Sure, you have potential, right? Everybody's got potential. Um, and then when they've done that, right, then you can say, great. Do you have any advice for me on skills how to develop, kind of roles how to have, right? Whatever it might be. But you want to ask simple questions. Don't ask people really deep, hard questions right off the bat, because that takes too much time and energy, and you haven't proven that you're worth it yet. So when you start interacting with people in this whole informal mentor-mentee way, you always want to start with simple things that don't take a lot of time and effort. Then you take their advice, you put their experience, their perspectives to work, and then you let them know how it impacted you. And it's in that process of letting them know how it impacted you that you start to develop a relationship where they start to see, oh, wait, I'm actually having an impact, right? They're actually listening to me. And then they might be more likely to spend time with you because they feel it's worth it. So read the book. It'll talk about adopting mentors, but that's what I found. What I found is the best way to do it is really listen to advice, take the advice, let people know it impacted you, right? And stay in touch. And then over time, what I found is people then might want to even claim you, right? They may say, oh, Shellye, I actually help her out and give her advice from time to time, right? They feel proud of you. So those are some things that you can do. In terms of putting yourself on the radar for opportunities, let people know what you want to do. I say all the time, tell the universe what you want so the universe can help you. If the universe doesn't know what you want, it can't help you. Now, I don't mean walk around saying, hey, look at me. This is what I want. This is what I need. I mean, right? Eh, It's an expression, but I don't mean actually go out there and yell from the hills, right? But you let people know. It's kind of those, oh, by the way, conversations that you might say, one day I hope I get the opportunity to manage a team in the marketing group. Or, one day I really want to work on an AI project in such and such. You just let people know the kinds of things that you're interested in doing. And that way, when they hear about it, they'll be like, oh, wait, Shellye said she's interested in that. And people say, you might say, okay, well, who do I tell? Everybody. You never know who can be helpful. And again, you don't start with it, but you find an opening, right? And you're able to share it. So, and when I say everybody, that doesn't mean just people at work or people at, your boss or people. I mean, people. It could be your friends. You got to let them know. They might hear of opportunities. You never know. Neighbors. I mean, whatever. So find ways to share and share in a way that's not threatening and not demanding, right? And anyway, that's how it's worked for me. Okay, some more questions here. Let me see. Got it. Hang on a minute. Okay, how do you assess the risk benefits to work at a tech startup? What are important considerations? Well, there's a lot of things to consider with a startup, because you don't know if a startup's going to be successful, right? So you have to make sure that what you get out of the startup, whether the company succeeds in the long term or not, right, are what you personally need. So are there skills and experiences that will add to the skills and experiences you have and move you towards your ultimate objective? Are the people the kinds of people that you want to work with, right? Do you feel that there is a good environment, a good culture, right, et cetera, for you to be successful? Do you believe in what they're trying to do? Do you believe in the mission, the purpose, the objective, and believe that it's really a good idea, right? A good solution that's needed in the marketplace, et cetera. And are you okay with the risk? If the company doesn't make it, right? Are you okay with that? So those are all the things to consider. Be careful. If you notice, the one thing I didn't say is, consider that you can get stock options and make millions of dollars, right? And the reason I didn't put that one out there is by definition, when you go into a startup, right? Typically people hope that therefore it's real successful will be a big financial outcome. So that kind of goes without saying. But you want to make sure that if it doesn't, because odds are it won't. I mean, those are just the odds, right? Odds are it won't. So you want to make sure everything else will bring you value. And then if it does, fantastic, right? In terms of that over outline. But be careful about doing something just for the financial return without anything else. Because then if the financial return doesn't pay out, then you haven't gained anything. You didn't get skills you need. You didn't work in an environment that you like, right? All those things, because you're going to work hard. So you want to make sure that you're actually adding value to yourself along the way. Okay. Next one. How can public sector professionals position themselves for private sector board opportunities? This is a really broad question, and so therefore it's hard to answer, right? Um, what I would tell you is it's experiences. The people who've been in public sector that I've seen on boards, and I'm just giving you my perspective, have actually held broad jobs, assistant secretary of transportations, right? Or head of the SBA. So the key is you need to be running and leading something at scale. And back to the experiences need to be experiences that the particular board actually needs or wants. So there isn't like, here's the answer. Um, the broad answer that I could give is make sure that you're in roles in which you have back to operational, you have profit and loss, and or it may not be profit and loss with the government, but budget. You have full budget ownership and accountability at scale. That's kind of a table stakes. And then that you have skills, right, or experiences that the board needs at the table. So I've seen people join boards who were generals, folks, as I said, who were secretaries or assistant secretaries of different functions. Um, who else have I seen with regards to government? Obviously, senators and whatever, et cetera. So that's the general key. All right, next one. How have you thought about a job learning versus pursuing professional credentials? I'm at a point in my career where I'm looking to pivot out of operations and into corporate strategy M&A, but have no experience. How would you suggest I position myself? And two, I've been trying to position myself for board experience via nonprofits, but to no avail. How would you suggest I approach this? Okay, so first, with regards to learning on the job versus professional, um, it depends on what state you are, right, in your overall career. If you're and what opportunities you have to pivot. So a professional degree like an MBA, et cetera, can be really helpful if you've been on one track and you're trying to switch to another. Because companies, when they're interviewing you, they see that, okay, I was doing this, but I invested in myself to get a broader, well-rounded set of skills, and now I want to move here, right? So that is absolutely a very valid path. Another path is you built a set of skills here, you want to move over there. Sometimes you can do it if you have relationships, people who know you, know what you're capable of, are in the area in which you want, and are willing to take a risk on you, right, in terms of moving across. So that happens. Sometimes it's a two-stepper. I have skills and experiences here. I want to move into the M&A and strategy piece, but maybe it's not a direct step. But maybe there's a skill set that I need first, like maybe business development. And from business development, I can move. So there's different paths. And the key is to look at where you are in your career, what sort of experience that you have, what kind of network do you have, and which path will work for you in the time frame that you're trying to get it done. Okay. Next. Oh, and then the nonprofit. How do you get on nonprofits? I've actually found that if you're interested in a nonprofit board, the first thing is to get involved in a nonprofit that you're passionate about. And when you get involved, volunteer, right? Take leadership roles when you volunteer, and then let the nonprofit know that you're interested one day in serving on the board. And many times, if you've demonstrated good skills, good perspectives, and capabilities that they want, they will pull you up right on the board. The other way to do it is to talk to people that you know that are serving on nonprofit boards that you're passionate about, and let them know you're interested in board service and interested in being helpful. And ask them, do they think that you have the potential to be a good nonprofit board member? Good or not. And if they say yes, you say, great, would you introduce me, right? So getting on a board, whether it's nonprofit, for profit, it's just like finding a job. It's doing the same set of skills. Work your network. Target the kinds of companies and organizations that you're passionate about and which your skills, right, will be valued. And next, how to manage advancement during childbearing years. Well, to me, that's just part of life and part of how you build a career. Um, I was raising kids during my childbearing years throughout the chunk of my career. I had my first child when I was, how old was I? 85, 62. I was 23. I was 23 years old when I had my first child. So yeah, I was having children and growing my career at the same time. So in terms of how to do it, it's the same way you do it later as well. It's all about figuring out and managing your priorities. I'm a big believer in what I refer to as work-life integration versus balance. I hate the term balance. Those of you who've read anything that I've written, I hate the term balance. And the reason I don't like the term balance is because they're two separate things, right? A balance is a fixed structure with two weights on each side that stay even at all times, but are completely separate and static, right? They never move. Something in balance is always in balance. Well, I hate to break it to you, life isn't static. Mine isn't. I can't believe any of yours is static. So to think that you have to create something that's always static is ridiculous. I believe in integration, which is you look at what are your priorities, personal priorities, professional priorities. You put those things together and then you reprioritize ruthlessly so that you get done what you need to get done across your life, which means there can be some things that you can't do. So either find somebody else to do them or learn to live without them getting done. But the key is childbearing years, college years, whatever it might be. It's always about priorities, and how to get things done. And it's also about getting help. And I'm not talking about a psychologist, although they can be helpful too. I've used psychologists. But here I'm talking about actually getting help, getting resources, creating the financial flexibility for yourself to actually get some help and support, because it's hard to do everything all by yourself. Nobody does everything all by themselves. So don't think that you can. So that's my general response to that question. Next one. How important is it to know the details of the product? The higher I get, the less contact I have with the product. I used to be able to assemble the product at the beginning of my career. So really good question. The higher you go, no, you don't have to know how to actually assemble the product. The key is figuring out, in order for you to do the job that you have, because you didn't share what that is, but in order for you to do the job that you have well, right, what do you actually need to know? And make sure you know that. But no, it's not everything. You have a whole team. You have a whole organization. And you're counting on them, right, to know all the details and all the specifics. So that's fine. But you need to make sure that you know enough to be able to do your job well. But rarely is it the same level of detail as when you had that first level job. So be comfortable, right? Not knowing everything, but make sure that your team does and have confidence in them. And if you don't have confidence in them, then you need to figure out how to build it in them or how to change the team. All right. Let's see. And I think we're winding up here. What are some techniques to advocate for oneself? I find the best way to advocate for yourself is frankly by sharing in ways that aren't seen as being, egotistical. You don't walk around saying, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me, right? Nobody likes those kind of people. But there are ways in which you can indeed share what you're doing, and you can do it while you also help others. So that could be, letting people know what's going on. You're working with a team, right? Maybe it's a dispersed team, etc. So periodically sending a note and just saying, hey, just want to keep the team updated on what's happening in this particular region, blah, blah, blah. Here's what's going on. Right? You can do it as, hey, I'm trying to help in terms of share and communicate. You can share what you're doing. People give you an opportunity all the time. They ask you how you are, and you say, I'm fine, or I'm good, I'm doing great, right? Well, no. The other way you can answer it is when they say, how are you? You can say, hey, I'm doing great. We just closed a major deal and I'm so excited, right? That's letting people know what you do. How are you doing? Oh my God, I'm exhausted. We spent the last 3 weeks trying to get the new update installed for blah, 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 right? And we did it, right? So you can tell people what you do when you answer how you're doing. It's another way of sharing and advocating for yourself. And the other thing is let people know. Make sure your boss knows, right? Leadership knows, et cetera, what you're interested in doing is a really simple way of advocating for yourself. And ask for their help. One day I'd like to do this. I said, do you think I have the potential? And if so, what are your recommendations for me on skill sets that I should build? Right? And then come back and let them know how you're doing. Hey, you suggested I build a skill in blah, blah, blah. I've been doing this. Is this the kind of thing that you were thinking of when you gave me that advice? Right? So all those things are ways to advocate for yourself in a way that's not threatening. How would you perceive an employee self-promoting online? Well, if it's viewed as self-promoting, then it's probably not good. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do things to actually create awareness online. Um, Couple things, right? If something wonderful happened to you, maybe you got an award, etc. Instead of you posting, "Oh, I'm so excited to share that I got this award," have a friend post. Ask them, say, listen, I just got this award. Would you mind doing a post? And they can do a post and say, oh, Yvonne, congratulations to Yvonne on blah, 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 right? And do a little post. And then you can do a thank you, right? You can do a little retweet, whatever, but then you didn't put it out there to start. So you can do things to get the word out without it being, I am actually self-promoting. Okay. I think those are the questions that we have. Let's see. Anything else on the chat? No, chat looks clear. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody for joining today and hope you'll tune in next month. I do these every month. Just register on my YouTube channel and you'll get notifications, or follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, what have you. I always post when we're doing the next all hands on AMA session on that as well. So I hope this was helpful and have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye-bye.